My next guest has some unique insights. Please welcome Daniel Geltrude to the show, America's Accountant. Thanks for being on, Dan. Okay, I'll say it one more time, then I'll let you talk. The people I don't want to be in this world right now are a margin clerk. I think that's a tough job. I think being a risk manager is also a tough job. But I had to add a third one, and that's a voting member of the Fed. I think it's impossible.
Yeah, it really is. Talk about being in a tough spot. I think what we're seeing, though, in the stock market, Scott, is inflation is finally putting that drag on. And the reason for that is that it is abundantly clear we are not in a transitory inflationary period. This is here to stay. And when you see the Fed is looking at half a basis point, 3/4 of a point in one shot, and in succession, they're getting real serious about, well, things are really bad with inflation because, as you said, we are 1/4 away from being in a recession. Some argue we're already there, Scott.
Well, you know, I was saying for the last week, maybe a week and a half, tongue-in-cheek, though, tongue-in-cheek, did not believe it at all. Hey, maybe we're in a recession right now, we don't even know it. Well, lo and behold, we get that number. Now, everybody came out with their excuses, but I would have accepted those excuses if we got the 1.1 they were expecting. But we got a negative 1.4, and that isn't good enough for me.
That just goes to show you about all these predictions that are made. And you know, the interesting part, as we're getting this information, it's historical. It's in the rear view. So everybody really needs to look at what's going to happen next. And I have to tell you, things are not looking rosy going forward. I'm going to put something out there, Scott, right now to say we are paying the price economically for all this spending that we've been doing, not just for the last 2 years, but for quite some period of time. But all of this spending, this is all coming back to roost. Why? Because now that we're going into raising interest rates, Scott, all that borrowing is now going to become so much more expensive. All the economic indicators to me at this point is spelling trouble. But if you go to the core, it's government spending money needlessly, and now it's coming back.
You know, I'm not the smartest guy in the world by any means, but I'll tell you, I do remember saying to myself, when Trump started spending money during the middle of the pandemic, right, to try to give people a break, I said, you know, we have to be very careful. You know, just because it's a once in 100-year thing doesn't mean that can't happen in 4 years, 4 years apart. Because we've now spent so much money, we can't have another pandemic. I mean, what are we going to do if we have another pandemic? We're in trouble. And I think that a lot of other countries, obviously Western countries around the world are like that. But what do we turn to now? I mean, we'll find ourselves like we are with the Fed. The Fed can't raise interest rates because the economy is slowing, but they have to raise interest rates because we've got a bad inflation problem. What are they going to do? I mean, what are they going to do?
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's really what this comes down to. This is a no-win, no matter which way we go. And you know, Scott, I got to tell you that the rising interest rates, that should have been done a while ago when inflation was really starting to heat up. Instead of trying to convince themselves, the Fed that is, that this was going to be transitory, they maybe should have said, well, what if it's not? And let's get ahead of this. But they decided to punt, and we're going to pay the price. And let me say one other thing, too, related to the national debt. People, I'm sure, have asked you, and they've always asked me, well, how much can we take? 30 trillion, 35, 40 trillion, 50 trillion? What happens? And you know what? We don't know because we've never had to pay the price because of low interest rates. Now interest rates are going up. We're about to find out how much debt the United States can actually hold.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Now, I mean, I've always looked to, say, Japan, and I look at it as our debt versus our total GDP, right? Everybody looks at it mostly. We've just gone over 100%. So basically, our debt is just over what we would produce in a year, right? That's probably the best way to say it. I know that Japan's twice what they produce in a year. They're up over 200%. So the problem with that, Dan, is that's all what our legislatures are also looking at, right? So they think, well, we're not as bad as Japan. We got room to run here. I know that's what they're thinking, and we don't have that room to run. That's the problem. So we're in a pickle. There's no way out of it. They're going to look bad. They're going to have egg on their hands or on their face either way. But the egg was put on their face, like you said, last year when they didn't do anything and they let this problem fester, because now the chickens have come home to roost, and it's going to be a problem. So, folks, we can't have everything. This is third grade math. When you shut off the free money and you raise interest rates and take that punch bowl away from the party, it's no fun anymore. And that's what's happening to these markets as we tail off even a little bit more today. All right, I really appreciate you being on the show, Dan. You make it so simple that even I can understand it. I appreciate that. He's coming to us from New Jersey. Appreciate you being on the show. Great stuff. All right.